It was one of those lazy summer days, and it was one of the hottest. We sat by the pool sipping drinks and just chatting about nothing in particular. Marge was on vacation and gave me a pitying look when I told her I had to work that night. You're joking, right? Come on. You look like a vampire, and it's the middle of the summer. Can't you just take one night off? She sighed. Seriously, T, you need some rest. Marge and I have been friends for as long as I can remember. I'm an only child, so she's like a sister I wish I had. We were completely different worlds, yet somehow fit perfectly together. Marge always laughs at the way I describe her, but it's the truth. To put it simply, she is beautiful, but for some reason I could never quite explain. It's like she's doing her best to hide it. Her long blonde hair is always up in some kind of messy ponytail, and her body is hidden behind oversized clothes and sweatpants. She also has this very strict look on her face that almost scares people away. If I hadn't known her for as long as I did, it would probably scare me too. Her emotions always locked away somewhere deep inside, as if it was a shame to show them. But with me, it's different. Some way, somehow, when we are together, she changes from the strict, distant person to everything you've ever wanted in a friend. Maybe it's because I'm the overly emotional one. I don't hide anything, and I think if I did try to hide something, my face would instantly give it away. I can't. It's not like people are going to stop getting sick or injured just because. I know. But how do you plan on helping them if you turn into a zombie? She shot me a worried look. So, am I a vampire or a zombie? You need to make up your mind there. I laughed, trying to avoid a lecture. It didn't work. Okay, here's the deal. Either you tell them you need a day off, or I'm marching down there and you know I will make them give you one. She sat up and put her drink away. I've seen you exhausted. You know how that ends. We both did. I've been struggling with anxiety for a long time, and it would start acting up if I pushed myself like I was doing that summer. She sat with me through a lot of attacks, and for that I was eternally grateful. So I nodded. Fine, I promise. I'll try and ask for this weekend off. She smiled. Great. So I'll come over and we can have a horror movie marathon. You have a lot of catching up to do. She slides back to her chair and puts her sunglasses on. I'm taking a nap. You should too. That was more of a command than a suggestion. Not that I would object anyway. I fell asleep almost immediately. I was woken by my phone going off. Hello? Oh, yes, Dr. Wells? Hi. Okay, of course. I'll be over as soon as I can. I got up from the recliner and checked the time. It was 7. My shift wasn't supposed to start for another 4 hours. I dragged myself to the house, only to see Marge making a sandwich in the kitchen. Good morning, sunshine. Here, I made you a snack. No time. Wells called. Have to get to work early. I mumbled as I headed towards the bathroom. You can stay here if you want. Again? What did they think you up? I interrupted her, now not really in the mood for a lesson. Please, not now. I'll take the weekend off. Just not now, okay? Whatever. She was angry. I knew that. But it wasn't just anger. Since we were in high school, I wanted to be a doctor, a surgeon. I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference. But that's not all there is to it. When we were 16, our friend died in a motorcycle accident. We were young, we were wild and reckless. For some reason, I always blamed myself for his death, even though I was told repeatedly it was not my fault. So I decided that I would try my best to save people from the pain I felt. And Marge knew that. So she wasn't just angry, she was sad. Because one and only time I managed to lie to her was about getting over him and letting go. About the fact that I no longer cried if I saw a rose. I loved roses right up until the moment where I placed them on his grave. Beautiful white roses. Because Marge never really knew that even though the three of us were inseparable, I fell in love. He was my first love, the kind of love you never forget. My mind went on autopilot as I showered, got ready, grabbed my coffee thermos from the kitchen counter. I waved to Marge on my way out, quickly jumped in my car and drove off. The ER was swamped. Everyone from kids with bloody noses to morons who thought it was a good idea to get blind drunk and jump in the pool, missing the pool completely. To the elderly couple who really, really needed to go out and get something in the scorching heat, and of course passed out no more than 3 steps from their yard. And that's just to name a few. I was running nonstop for what seemed like an eternity until, finally, the crowd was almost gone and I went out for a smoke. Nasty habit, I know, but when you work in the ER, you really need something, anything, to take the edge off. I checked my phone. It was already 3 a.m. I took one big sip of coffee and almost choked when one of the nurses came running and yelled my name. "What is it?" I asked, checking if any of the coffee I spat out wound up on my scrubs. "We have an ambulance on the way," she said, out of breath. "A kid driving without a helmet crashed into a minivan. They're 3 minutes away." I froze for a moment. "Doc, we have to go now." She snapped at me and I followed her back in. I heard the ambulance arriving. I heard people running. I ran. And then I stopped dead in my tracks. He was covered in blood, surrounded by paramedics, nurses, and doctors. They were all shouting, something you get used to when you work in this field. But this time, I couldn't hear a thing. Because even with all the commotion, with all the blood, with everything around me, I knew what I saw. It was him, the boy I buried all those years ago. It wasn't resemblance. It wasn't a mistake. That was him. He had the same bracelet on, the same one he had the day he died, the same one I had back home hidden away in a locked jewelry box. I couldn't breathe. Then he opened his eyes and smiled. But it wasn't his smile. It was a crooked smile, and his jaw was almost detached from impact, making it even worse. Nobody seemed to notice this because I distinctly heard one thing: not responsive. And against every instinct, against the oath I took, I turned away and ran outside, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't go back in. One of the paramedics approached me carefully. "Doctor, you okay?" I just stared at him, trying to catch my breath. Then I grabbed him by the shoulders, and he almost jumped back. "The boy! The one you just brought in. Where did you, why?" At this point I was mumbling and choking back on my tears, releasing my grip. He slowly put his hand around me and led me to one of the benches right by the exit. "Do you know him?" I do, I mean, I did, There was no logical explanation as to what I saw, and how was I supposed to explain this to the poor guy who was doing his best to keep me calm? I couldn't get that smile out of my head. It was so sinister. I took a deep breath and held back tears as I stood, shaking and dizzy. "I have to go back in. I'm sorry." I said as calm as I could, but I knew I wasn't going back. I grabbed my stuff from the break room and, not bothering to even change my own clothes, bolted to my car. As I was driving home, I was trying to reason with myself. It must have been sleep deprivation. I was seeing things, imagining. By this time, I started hyperventilating. I knew panic was taking over. So I got my phone and called Marge. After a long ring, she answered, but her voice was muffled and I could barely hear her. "T? What? Something wrong?" I was talking fast and trying to make sense. "Come home. There. Love. Eyes." And then the line disconnected. Love? Eyes? I must have woken her up. She wasn't making any sense. But still, it was good to know she was still over at my house. As I got out of the car, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. But this wasn't panic. It was different. I slowly walked to the front door, taking deep breaths. "It's okay. You're home. Everything's going to be okay." Just as I was about to punch the code in the lock, the light sensor went off and illuminated half the yard. It blinded me for a moment. Then I could see again. I glanced down at my front door. There was a bouquet of white roses. I let out a scream, the one I didn't know I had in me, and then my phone vibrated. One message from Marge. I didn't get a chance to read it because in the next moment, Marge appeared at the front door, eyes bloodshot, baseball bat in hand. "What the hell, T? What's going on?" She looked at me and what a mess I was. Then I pointed at the roses on the doorstep. "What is that?" she asked, looking around the yard. I shook my head, and she ushered me inside, quickly closing the door behind me. She sat me down on the couch, and all I could do was try and talk, but all that came out was a bunch of incoherent words and tears. I called you. I. You didn't make any sense. I don't know, I said as she was trying her best to calm me down. What? When did you call? She seemed confused by this. Just a minute ago. Why? Why does that even matter? That didn't seem to be that important yet, she insisted. And you say I answered? Yes. Why is this so important? I asked now, getting more and more agitated. Her face was turning white. Because I forgot my phone at my place, she said quietly. Then it hit me. I also had a text from her. I reached for my phone, my hands shaking like crazy, and opened the last text. It read, True love never dies.